us into our meeting. I'd just like to mention that it's 30 years ago today since Gary Sims attended his first council meeting.
Well, congratulations.
It's a fair commitment. 30 years ago today.
Congratulations, Gary.
Well done. Okay. Right. As the acting mayor, I will now declare the meeting open and ask for apologies and leave of absence. We have Mayor Peter Fresh and Deputy Mayor Warnett moved away because they're both contesting state elections. Are there any other apologies?
We had a late apology from Councillor Mesker.
I'll move that be accepted.
Move Councillor Sims, Councillor Wicks. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried. Right. Need to confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting held at the 12th of February. The recommendation for the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Latrobe Council Chambers on the 12th of February 2024 were taken as read and confirmed. Would someone like to move that?
Second.
Fiddler?
Yeah.
Councillor Sims? Any queries? Okay, put to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Next recommendation we have is the confirmation of the special meeting of Latrobe Council Chambers on the 26th of February 24 be taken as read.
So moved. Seconded.
Councillor Sims, seconded Councillor Fiddler. All those, any queries? No? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. The 3 is the Latrobe Council Annual General Meeting held on March the 24th.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes on for a fair bit there. Do we need discussions on that?
Yeah, no, over the next page. There's a recommendation there, basically, that's on page 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the minutes of the AGM basically be noted, and in relation to the submission from Mr. Redgrave, there were 2 submissions made at the AGM. One was from Melissa Jemison, and she was satisfied at the meeting. There was no further course of action required. There was a submission then from Mr. Redgrave, basically recommending that the new bridge over the Mersey River be named in the honour of the late Richard Rockcliffe. So the recommendation is it's either one, that Council consult with the Rockcliffe family regarding Mr. Redgrave's request that Council formally names the new suspension bridge over the Mersey River as Rick Rockcliffe Bridge, or number 2, advise Mr. Redgrave, and basically the Council's previously considered this issue, and that and we've consulted with the late Mr. Rockcliffe's family, and they're happy to work with us on doing a suitable memorial at Sassafras. I guess there's no reason why Council couldn't pursue both issues. We're already working on the memorial at Sassafras. It's whether you want to pursue the other issue regarding naming the bridge after the late Mr. Rockcliffe.
Through the chair, I'll move recommendation 2.
Can I move recommendation 1?
Well, you've got a mover of the first one.
Sorry.
So you need a seconder for the first.
No, you're going to a recommendation for 2.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
2, recommendation 2. Right, is moved by Councillor Sims, seconded by Councillor Fiddler. Right,
I think
that we consult with the Rockcliffe family.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could foreshadow a motion that if this doesn't get passed, you move to motion 1, or otherwise you just put it to the vote. So whether you want you could shadow a motion. If this is lost, you'll go for number
Yeah,
one.
I'll do that, yes.
Yeah, so,
And now we can put it to the vote.
no, well, we just have a
Okay,
debate on
discussion on it,
Yeah,
yeah.
just ask.
Gary, do you want
Yeah.
to say something?
I just feel that the mayor who's on leave at the moment, he has discussed this with the family, working with the family, and when they see fit to sit down and feel they want to discuss it, so be it.
Councillor Fiddler, you want to?
While it's a good gesture on behalf of Mr. Redgrave, I think there's better options for commemorating Rick in other areas in the community. That's why I'll go with option 2.
Okay. Anybody else?
To anyone against the motion?
Well, can I still say mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to Gary's motion if I could first.
We normally go both sides and normally.
Okay, that's whatever you like.
How you want to?
No, I just would like to say that I think option 1 is a good option because we all want a memory of Rick Rockcliffe. The bridge is there, it's immediate, it's cost effective, and it would be a memory that can happen immediately.
I think consultation with Mr. Rockcliffe's family is absolutely relevant. And I think it would be pertinent to have something that would be relevant to Mr. Rockcliffe. I don't believe that he had any affiliation with mountain bike riding or the development of the bridge or anything like that. So something that would be relevant to Mr. Rockcliffe would be an appropriate measure rather than just slapping his name on anything.
Anybody else? No? No more? Oh, we can put the motion. All those in favour of option 2?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1. Okay, then the motion is carried. Thank you for that. We've got no presentations, no notice of a motion, no petitions. Right, response to questions raised, they've been answered, haven't they?
You need a move in a second.
Have we moved?
So moved by councillor Wicks, seconded by councillor Fiddler. But the responses to the questions discussion will be received and noticed. All those who speak for or against? Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Carried. Right. 7-2. You've got a question. The recommendation is that the response to the questions from Shane Allison at the annual general meeting held on 4th of March 2024 be received and noticed. Councillor Fiddler, second councillor Wicks. Anybody wish to speak for? Anybody wish to speak against? Put to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? Huh? Harry? Well, we haven't got any public people at the meeting, so we've got no questions on notice from the public. Public participation
Yes.
without notice from the public. Have we got any of those?
No one here.
Nobody here? All right. All right. In accordance with Clause 25(1) of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the chairperson as advisor council will now act as a planning authority. We have a development application of 35 and 35A Palmers Road, and our planning and Arthur is here to run us through it.
Need a mover and a seconder first.
Normally you have a move in a second.
Okay. Look, you'll have to bear with me as we're going along. Development application, we have a mover and a seconder for it.
Move for discussion.
Councillor Sims, second Councillor Fiddler. Those for? Against?
Good evening, everyone. I thought I'd come up here tonight so then I can be better heard on the recording and there's no one at the rear. So we have the predominant development as part of this application is for 22 units, but it also encompasses a boundary adjustment and the demolition of the existing dwelling at 35A and 35 Palmers Road, Latrobe. For those unfamiliar with the area, it is currently the fringe of town, we'll say, on the other side of the highway. And it was originally flagged that the access strip was a road, and all permissions have been granted to remove that road annotation to favour the unit development. There's no local strategy to extend that area beyond that at this point. The strategy is more focused on this side of the highway and to the south. So there's no immediate reason as to why we should be holding a road when a subdivision could maybe hold 8 single dwellings, where this is a multiple dwelling development that can hold 22. So not from a planning perspective, but from a perspective where we've got an immediate housing shortage in Tasmania, it's probably a more effective use of land, we'll say. So as I say, it's on the fringe of town. The two of the title boundaries for this site is actually rural zoned, and its current use is obviously mainly forested, which I'll cover more in the representation later on. Bushfire prone overlays area only, so no priority vegetation overlay or anything on that site. And it is 22 units, as I say, with the access strip being utilised as a visitor car parking area for that site. So as opposed to me putting 66 images, which none of you could have read in the report itself, I have included the plan set, which made it easier for you to read. It would have been easier to zoom in and so forth. 2 stages, stage 1 being the northern side of the development and stage 2 being the southern side. So predominantly two bedroom units with three bedrooms. So the demolition and the boundary adjustment are permitted and considered under the general provisions. So there's nothing that we can call on there. And the only discretion for council to consider tonight is the traffic movements in the Road and Railway Assets Code. So this developer's done quite a few developments in Latrobe now. They always aim for permitted applications, but in this case, there's no way they could have had a permitted application because 22 units will always generate more than 40 vehicle movements. So to support their application, they have obtained a traffic impact assessment from Pitt and Sherry, the civil engineers at Pitt and Sherry, and a very long report concludes that its level of service is as good as it can be for the anticipated traffic movements, and that the road is definitely fit for purpose. Happy to answer any questions councillors may have. The representation, my apologies. The representation was concerned of the current state of the site, which I do have Council's Environmental Health Officer following up to see if it's a fire hazard, and that the representative would have liked 2 trees to be retained on the site. That's not the developer's wish by the plans they've submitted, and there's no way that I can enforce that with the discretions that are invoked.
I did notice today that they're all down.
Are they? Yeah.
Deforested.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's heat piled now in heaps.
Is that on Palmers Road or is that on?
Side of the highway.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a different block. But yes, you're right. That has been. We're in preliminary discussions with that block at the moment. Similar scenario. There's no priority vegetation overlay, so we can't enforce any retention of vegetation on that site. Happy to answer any questions.
When you say that the plan's as good as it can be, are there glaring holes that, could it be better? Should it be better?
Could it be better? Should it be better? Is a matter of opinion. Everyone will see it differently. Where I say it couldn't be any better, it's there's only one discretion invoked, which they can't avoid. So purely from the perspective of the planning scheme, have they ticked all of the boxes? Yes, all bar one. So there's a requirement to put some screening in and so forth for privacy, or make sure the finished ground levels are reasonable, under a metre high, where the units are close, and that's just to allow fencing to screen between the units. But yeah, maybe it wasn't the right use of words, but to stand by what I said, yes, from does this application adhere to all acceptable solutions in the planning scheme? Yes, it couldn't be any better other than that one.
Any more questions, Latrobe? No? Okay. The recommendation is that the report by the planning officer concerning the development of location of 35 and 35A Palmer's Road be received and that the council approve the use of development subject to the following conditions. Would someone like to move?
I did move.
Well, you moved it for discussion, but you meant you moved it.
No, I'm happy to endorse the recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, we can put it to the vote then. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? It's carried.
See?
Anyone got it? Is this one we got a report by Joe Oliver?
Yeah, Joe's online.
Oh, she's online, okay. We have a draft amendment to the Latrobe local revision schedule correction of error in the Port Strewell and environment specific area plan. Have our consultant town planner Joe Oliver are you on board, Joe?
She on mute.
Are you there, Joe? You're texting you, Jen.
She's just sent a message, you need to let me in, Sarah.
Oh, need to let her in.
Yeah, she's in.
Maybe she goes out and comes back in again.
Hang on. She's in, but let me. It's muted.
Has she got her camera and her microphone's off by the looks of it?
She can hear and see us.
Yes, turn her microphone again. Yes, she has. Yep.
Hi, Joe. We can't hear you. No. Still can't hear you, Joe.
Not on mute.
A little harder, Brown.
Put on. They're in or in. Goes in.
Yes.
She just muted herself now. She's.
Turn it off and start again.
Over the next
Works for me.
I can go to the next agenda item if not, or do we come back?
To do that, to see staff as a planning code and read and then go back into planning.
Just trying to join on her laptop now.
No, sorry, Joe.
We can't restart ours again or
Oh, you're losing everything. It's being recorded.
Okay, you put her on speaker on
yeah.
option.
I think, Joe, if I ring you on my mobile and maybe talk through that.
She can share a screen still,
Yeah, it's for the screen still, yeah.
if she wants to share a screen.
Volume is up on the TV, isn't it? Volume is up on the TV. You do that, sir.
Hang on. Hello? Joe, can you speak?
You know, answer your phone.
That's it.
You there, Joe?
Yep, can you hear me?
I can. I think that we may have to do it through the phone and you can still share your slides. If that's okay. Everyone can hear that?
Yeah, I don't think I. You can just put the report on the camera.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not sure. According to my computer, everything's plugged in and should be working. I'm not sure why you can't hear me at your end. Joys of technology. Okay, so if I just quickly talk to the item, it's not a big one. It's essentially to correct an error that was made in the TPC decision on the LPS in regards to the translation of some particular provisions in the Port Sorell and Environs specific area plan. As sort of explained in the report, the references in the transitional provisions were to old pre-subdivision titles. The TPC asked us for the information on the titles that were created from those pre-subdivided titles, and then they promptly slapped them all into the provision. But what that essentially does is it applies provisions to internal subdivided lots that were only meant to apply to peripheral lots or lots that were affected by the overlay diagrams that you can see in the report. So essentially, the state government, in its infinite wisdom, when it set up the provisions for the Tasmanian planning scheme, removed all of the provisions for urgent amendments relating to the correction of errors. So previously, with these types of circumstances, which are clearly just a technical, typographical type error, the TPC could just instigate a correction amendment and just sort it out themselves. Those provisions are now gone. There are no correction provisions in the legislation. So what that means is for any error correction, irrespective of whose error it is, the council has to go through this process of preparing an amendment and proceeding with the full amendment process. As you can see in the recommendation, there is a small leg out for things like this, where there's no material effect on the landholders. In fact, it's changing what is a prohibitive effect that shouldn't have been there. And you can exempt the amendment from the need for public notification and or hearings. So that is the case in regards to this amendment. It's just reinstating what the provisions were before as intended, and just requesting that the TPC would dispense with those provisions and just get on with fixing it. But we have to go through this this process of council preparing and certifying the amendment. There is one thing I need to mention. In the certification document that's attached, in the very last standard, I've just omitted the folio reference, which is folio 14. It's in the report. It's just not on the certification document. So I'll add that before it goes down to the TPC, should council resolve to prepare the amendment as per the recommendation. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
Here we have one from Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Joe. Can I just ask, have there been any adverse impacts to current landowners or any decisions that have been made by council to this point that need to be reversed or remedial action taken place?
One of the landowner that is most affected and has been planning, as one of the landowners in the moorings estate, as I understand it, has been intending on preparing a subdivision under the prior provisions, which were supposed to carry through for some time. So they intend to proceed that, and they have to wait for this to go through to reinstate the provisions that were there before. So yes, that landowner is adversely affected, but the other single smaller landholders, I think they're completely oblivious to the effect of these provisions as they now apply to their blocks. And some of them are just prohibited, it's prohibitive. So there's no ability to establish a 50-metre wide vegetation corridor on a 43-metre length block. Yeah. So you end up with these nonsensical provisions, and if any of those people come in with a development application, they're going to come up against these provisions because they're mandatory in their application, but we haven't had any yet other than the landholder of the balanced land in the moorings.
And it will impact him further in time. By how long did you expect?
Sorry, Councillor, I missed that.
How much longer do you think it will take for this to go through, and how much longer will the impact be on the landholder?
If the TPC agree to our request to dispense with notification and hearings, this could be done and dusted, I would say, within about 3 weeks. I have done this before for another one that they mucked up for a SAP at Meander Valley for Westbury, and that's how long it took to correct it, and they did dispense with notification and hearings because it was a clear muck-up. Right. So it shouldn't really take any longer than that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Somebody else was going to ask a question. Councillor Wicks.
I do have a question. Should this have been moved or seconded?
No, it hasn't been. No, it hasn't. I can do that now, though, if you want me to. Someone like to move that the draft amendment local provisions schedule correction of error in the portrait environment and specific area. Someone like to move it?
Well,
move it. Councillor said it. Okay. Now we can keep going. Have you got a question?
No, that was my question.
That was your question. Have we got any more questions of Joe?
No, I'm having Joe's report.
Okay. Everybody happy? Thanks, Joe. Thank you. Is that all we need? Thanks very much.
Yes, if councillors are happy, that's fine.
They seem happy, then nobody's got any questions. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Bye.
The motion.
I'll put the motion now. All those in favour?
Okay.
All those in against? Motion is carried.
Maybe just say carried unanimously, just for the record.
Okay, carried unanimously.
Thank you.
I'll get through this one day.
We're all right.
Over to the next one.
10.3 is the next one.
10.3. 10.3 is that the council cease to act as a planning authority, or someone like to move. Moved by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Right. Number 11. The Development Regulatory Service Department. It's a recommendation that the status report given about to the month of February be received. Would someone like to move?
So move.
Councillor Sins, second, Councillor Wicks. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Next one. Right, the next one is the Building Department report for February 24. Would someone like to move?
So move.
Councillor Sins, second to Councillor Fiddler.
I'm happy with the amount of applications. Just bowling along. So
Yes, they've been there, isn't there?
thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? No, all carried unanimously. Next one. The naming of a new road, is it? 11-3? The naming of a new road created by a 9-lot subdivision off York Street. Would someone like to move?
I can move.
Councillor Wicks? Name of a new road created by Lot 9 subdivision of York Street.
Yep. Which one?
Aren't we moving it for discussion? Isn't there?
No, correct. I'm happy to move Anatola.
Okay.
It's okay, you can vote against it.
Okay.
Sorry, the reason who was the second up?
Hang on, I'll get over to it.
Oh, that needs something to do with the east. Just think of that dictates.
Just out of the top of their name.
So Anatola Court.
Yes.
It's yucky.
Right. You've moved it?
I have.
Somebody second that?
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Wicks, by Councillor Fiddler. That the street name be Anatola Court, isn't it?
Mainly.
Is that not the second one?
No, it's the first one.
The first one.
Now we can go into discussion.
Now yes. Anybody want to talk about it?
Yeah, I personally don't like the name at all. Probably got negative connotations from awful people in history. So I prefer the third one. Far more pleasant. Anybody wants to go back in history and have a look at the Anatola Khomeini, feel free.
That's Anatola.
Still sounds similar.
We hear from Troy on the your Troy.
It was my report, Andrew came up with the names. It's one of those scenarios where we always push it to the developer to name, but they didn't wish to name this subdivision. They pushed it back to us. So it's always really difficult for us. We never know what to name them. It may be something council can workshop in future as to some potential names you'd like streets to be in future. But obviously that's not the discussion for a council meeting. But yeah, they all relate to the east in some way, shape or form. It's the best we had at that point in time. It's the only real suggestion we had from around the office. So yeah, as I say, it's something you may be able to workshop, but yeah, I didn't look at any of the Anatola or any Anatolia, what it could actually be perceived as, to other than the fact that it is to the east, roughly relating to the east or a region in the east in other languages. Orientum, if we look up Ad Orientum, does have some religious connotations, some positive, some negative. But yeah, I think they're all pretty innocent. I mean, we never know really what will come until it actually gets out there. But yeah, it's all I've got with that one.
Any other points of view? So we've only got the Anatola course, the only one we're voting on? Sorry? Yep. So all those in favour? All those in favour, Anatola Court? Anatola, isn't it? Yeah, Anatola Court. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3.
Maybe for the record, for people listening, you could name the councillors, just easier.
Okay. Councillor Fiddler, Councillor Wicks, and Councillor. Sorry. Good thing. Oh, I'm for it. Councillor Green.
It's against it. The rest are against, I presume.
Yes.
Those are
Carried.
Yeah.
Those are against?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The ayes have it, so it's carried.
Credit note, isn't it? Yes.
What's the next one we got here?
Next.
The next one we've got, oh yeah. It's the naming of the existing private road off Cotton Street, Victor Street Junction in Latrobe. Would someone like to move?
Maybe to move this one also. Race Lane.
Councillor Wicks, second Councillor Fiddler. We're open for discussion.
Good race.
You, as a move of the motion, you want to talk to it?
Yeah, happy. Troy, do you have any comments on this one, Ian?
Council has a responsibility to name all private roads that have more than one dwelling on them. So this one's actually gone under the radar for quite a few years and are really suffering because of it with electoral roll, telecommunications, power. So we do have a responsibility to name it. And in the scenarios where we're naming private roads, we must engage with the landowners, which we have, and we actually have a written request from them. The other two names that they suggested can't be considered under the guidelines. So it's the third one that's recommended for approval.
Okay. So Millrace Lane is the recommended one. Okay. We'll put it to the vote. All those in,
Yeah.
put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Like myself.
Credit.
Those against? Carried unanimously. What have we got next?
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks, Troy. Right. Number 12, from the Office of the General Manager. Do you want to talk about this one? Yeah, well, I'll someone move it first. At the Lady Gary Early Child Education Facility Potential Development in Latrobe. Sorry, Jackie. Jackie. Councillor Martin and Councillor Sims.
Yeah, so look, I guess one option is to move it for discussion, or the acting mayor suspend standing orders, and then you may want to come back with an option, unless you feel confident you want to move one of them. There's three options, but there is a recommendation. So if you're comfortable with the recommendation, I can give you that background.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Sorry.
We did have a discuss first.
Or whether you're happy with the recommendation that's there, but.
I'm happy with the recommendation.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sure.
Yep. Right.
Impressive.
Gary.
Yes.
So move
I'm moving to seconder.
We have it.
move Councillor Martin second.
Yeah. So I've already done that.
Yeah, all right, just for the record.
We're looking for your comments.
Right then. Yeah, so in late 2023, council were approached by Lady Gary Tasmania, whether we had any suitable land, not necessarily council-owned land, but suitable land where they could be looked for development of a early childhood education and care facility. They were also talking to other councils along the coast. They've got no presence on the northwest coast at the moment, and they believe there's an unmet demand. I showed them the land in Cotton Street. 4 or 5 weeks before that, I had shown another developer that land because I thought when it was being developed, it was very well located for a childcare centre. So the three options that we put forward is to sell the lots 2, 3, 4, and 5. Council did look at this at a workshop and also thought maybe lot 1 for future expansion. And I know there's recently a major early childhood childhood centre developed in the north, and that was a similar size. There's 75 to 100 places, and they could double it already. It's only just been completed, so there's big demand out there. So that's one option. The second option is advised Lady Gary, once the subdivision has been completed, street box will be placed on the open real estate market, at which time they are welcome to make an offer. So that's normally what we would have done. The third option is advise Lady Gary that Cotton Street subdivision was developed to allow for new houses to be built in the area. Therefore, council is not supportive of a large childcare centre. The recommendation was option one on the basis that childcare is a major issue within the council area. It's also an issue for economic development because quite often if businesses are expanding, if they can't get workers, childcare is an issue surrounding that. We do have anecdotal evidence that people are travelling as far as Burnie for childcare and vice versa. So that is the recommendation. It is one of those where it is awkward because if this is approved, council then as the planning authority will consider the application. It's something that we made a representation to the local government board where if there are issues like this, perhaps there should be a separate planning authority to consider it because of the potential perceived conflict. However, that is being looked at, but the legislation is not there at the moment. So I guess it's council weighing up the benefit of this to the region. They're not seeking any subsidies. The recommendation is that we get evaluation and they'll pay market value. So, yeah, so there are some areas where the council itself are into the childcare space because no one like this has come along and offered to build and operate a facility. Speaking to Lady Gary, they did like the Latrobe area because of the closeness to Launceston, potential interchanging of staff. They're also looking at establishing a training facility. Be very keen to have close contacts with the high school about that transition from the grade 10, 11 and 12 into the childcare area. There's a massive shortage of childcare employees in the state, so they see this as a training facility to meet that unmet demand at the moment. So that's basically the background to it.
Can I ask how you went with the discussion around lot one?
They haven't said no. They took it to the Lady Gary board, and I guess it's probably going to depend on what the prices all come back at. We'll get valuations, but they could see the benefit of having lot one, cater for future expansion. But given the recent case I'm aware of, I'd certainly be recommending they look at that because I'm sure they will be full very quickly once it's built. And they're talking about a cost of $3 million. There was a coverage in the paper today, which I think is good. Hopefully people will get feedback on that as it moves to the next stage. And we put it in open council because we wanted to be open and transparent. Normally the sale of land goes in closed council. I just thought it was appropriate because it is a very unusual circumstance that we sell land directly to someone and not put it on the open market. Yeah. I guess that's something council is going to have to weigh up the costs, the benefits and the risks of losing it to the area.
Have we ever been approached by other entities for such a development with regard to childcare?
The other development was similar, but they've seemed to, haven't progressed that. There was a childcare developer looking. I did take them and show them the land, but haven't progressed it.
Okay. That's lots 2, 3, 4 and 5.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
And then we're not the ones around the back?
No, they will. So we're currently getting valuations. We're in the process of getting valuations for that land, and we're also then down the track looking at the unmade Alberta Street, which we've looked at recently.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good.
I think the report's quite comprehensive about the background and the costs of what we spent getting to this stage. So it is an area that was previously very untidy. We work closely with the adjoining developer who's developing houses on that land. So it's certainly going to improve whatever happens there compared to what was there.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
Okay.
We have a recommendation there.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded.
Yeah.
Need to put that in.
Need to put it.
Oh, all right. Put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. We got 13. Corporate and Business Services Department.
So move for discussion.
Moved Councillor Sims, seconded Councillor Wicks. Yeah, and we're having a full discussion.
Yeah, so recently the council agreed that we'd get more detailed capital works budgets with quarterly operating budgets. The first operating budget, I think, is Steve, Mr. Midson, is due next quarter. We haven't quite fully developed the template for the capital works, but this has given more detail than what we've had in the past. So, who would like to speak to it? Whether it's, Jonathan shared the bulk of it, whether you'd like to highlight any of the projects that are in here.
This basically is an excerpt from what you would have previously got through the finance report, but it has got a number of the columns removed that probably aren't so significant in terms of the status of the capital works. And then the right-hand column where it talks about the status comments, we've actually added a fair bit of information in there compared to what would have been presented before in the finance report. So I'm not saying this is necessarily done and dusted, but yeah, it is a process to go to the relevant personnel in charge of each of these projects and make sure that status report is as up to date as what it can possibly be. The other thing that it's a little bit messy in this in terms of if we do have a project and it might be a carried forward project and we want to continue that with an additional budget allocation. Sometimes we carry forward the older budget allocation, but we also create a new line for the new financial year. So you end up with two lines for effectively the same project. So to talk with the finance team about how we incorporate that just as the one line so it doesn't get sort of lost and linked across the page. So I think it'll be a lot clearer. It's not a huge amount of detail for any project, but it should give a comfort and a reasonable understanding as to where they're at.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and so the revised template will take into account the issues that Mr. McGaw's mentioned there, and it came through the audit panel because just the sheer volume of the finance team presenting two finance reports every month for both councils. They thought this was giving councillors better information, particularly on the capital works.
Yeah, can I make further comment? Sorry. This format, and so the finance team would actually produce this report, and then the relevant project manager would then update the comments and the status comments. So those comments will come through in that finance report. But yeah, we will build on this over time rather than going back and having three sources of information as to what the project start date is and what the end date is, rather than infrastructure and assets generating a separate spreadsheet of finance. So theirs will be the one that basically feeds up and backwards from, so we don't lose that.
I guess the issue has been highlighted over recent years with the number of capital works projects, and particularly the projects that have gone over multiple years. Like it seems the last 4 or 5 years we have got more and more larger projects which are not completed in the 1 year, and some of them going over basically 3 years, like the flood mitigation scheme or even the redevelopment of the Banksia facilities.
And surely Tech One's got that capacity to be able to draw that information into one report.
Yes, so the information here is drawn from Tech One, but then created into a spreadsheet, so it's easy to manipulate for this purpose.
Okay.
It is a work in progress, but hopefully it meets the information that you require.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Right, the next one. Infrastructure and Assets Department. Someone like to move? Over Fiddler. Councillor Fiddler. Next one, Councillor Border.
Perhaps hand over to Mr. McGraw to go through this. We did discuss it at a workshop, so the report basically hasn't changed, I don't think, but not an easy project. I'm sure Jonathan will explain the options and where we've worked through it.
Yes, this one does date back a little while, and it has been quite a lot of, I suppose, effort to even get it to this point, which from the perspective of councillors and the public probably isn't that far advanced, but there are a lot of issues to consider in this one in terms of the continuing development of that area and also the climate change predictions. And we don't want to be back here, in 10 or 15 years' time with the same issue. So there's been a lot of work done about what the climate change predictions are and sizing a system that's going to suit that for the longer term. Basically where we're at is to really manage the stormwater, the overland flow path down through Sankey Street. It does need curb and channel both options with this report that was commissioned by GH&D includes curb and channel down Sankey Street. So to stop that water that doesn't go into a pipe system, so the pipe system's only ever sized for a particular size event, whether it's a 100-year event or 200-year event, there'll always be a larger flow rate potentially than that, or there might be a blockage to the system, which results in water going over. At the moment, Sankey Street sits slightly higher than those adjacent properties, so there is no control of that water down through the road reservation, so it does end up through adjacent property. So to manage that overland flow path is the curb and channel, so that looks after those bigger extreme events, but we do also want to put underground those more regular, smaller events up to perhaps a 1 in 10 or 20-year flow rate. So the recommendations from the report is to either increase the size of the detention basin to limit the outflow to that of what the existing pipe network is down at Sankey Street, and then the proposed curb and channel would capture that extra flow. The other option put to us is to increase the size of the detention, sorry, I just said that one, is to leave the detention basin or even potentially remove the detention basin and put a bigger pipe network down Sankey Street so to convey that water rather than storing that water. What they haven't done, which I would like some more work done on, and that's what the recommendation is about, is that, okay, if we keep the detention basin its current size, we might do some work in terms of what size the outlet diameter to it might be. If we keep the detention basin, how much bigger would the pipe network in Sankey Street have to be than what it is now? And would that be best to upgrade that existing pipe work or to duplicate it, so supplement it with another pipeline? So at the point, can't say how practical that is, but I think that's probably the most straightforward and sensible way to manage not only the cost but also the balance with the existing infrastructure we've already got in place. So that's what this recommendation is, but it's also to put this report on our website, make it available, show that there is progress made on it, and to give some comfort to those residents that have been subject to inundation in the past.
Yeah, I think one of the issues here, putting curb and gutter in some of those streets, I mean, it's anecdotal feedback over the years that people like they like the, I guess, informality of the roads out there with open drains and mow and everything else. This is a change from that. I guess people are going to have to balance that with the benefits of having infrastructure and overflow pathways, etc.
Some of you might recall we did Frederick Street a number of years ago, and we're a little bit the same on there. It's like, do we start changing wholly the big orders you would like or not? But yeah, we've had no issues in Frederick Street since that time.
I think that change has already been made for us, really, with the developments of all subdivisions and the growth out there. I think we're past that point of no return, to be honest. Can I just ask, if it's all right?
Yeah.
what would be the merit, or do the retention basins work at all?
Absolutely. So they don't hold water for long periods of time. So when we have those heavy rains overnight, we can certainly see the debris line as to where the water's been to, but that happens in the middle of the night, and by the time the morning comes, it's back dry again. But there's certainly debris line as to where the water.
Okay, so what would be the benefit of removing it?
It would potentially free up some land that could arguably be sold to help recover some costs that this project might cost, actual cost. Yeah, that's probably the major one, and I guess it is a departure from what the community see is previously being a necessary installation to how can you do away with something that's been required in the past? So just removing it might make some people nervous in terms of that you've lost some ability or capacity that you might have had in the past.
It does seem a bit counterintuitive that you take away something that has got some potential to hold some water before you've even put other infrastructure in place that will take it away. It just seems a bit...
There might be, I guess on that is, if we're going to have to upsize pipework in Sankey Street anyway, if it's just a matter of going from one size pipe to the next size pipe, so from a 750 millimetre diameter pipe to an 825 millimetre pipe, the actual cost difference between those two pipe sizes might not be that much. So it might be that effectively the detention basin stays there but has minimal use other than something bigger than even the design event.
Where does this plan... Look, we've had lots of concerns raised about water in that whole area. Where does this plan fit into the overall scheme of water management in the Port Thrill Shearwater Hawley area? Does it interlock?
Not really. Each catchment effectively functions by itself. So this Sankey Street, whilst we've got issues in different catchments, this one functions completely independently other than what the tide level might be when the water's trying to push out into the same body of water. Obviously subject to the same rainfall events and all the rest of it, but in terms of being interconnected physically with something else, there's no connection.
Right, so, and looking at the diagram, there was that blue panel that goes right through the middle where part of it was bone dry, and then obviously that's kind of like a floodplain area.
So depending on the shape of the land, obviously the water runs down here to the lower spot, so the higher parts are shown as not wet. Whilst they get rainwater, they're not inundated.
Yeah. So if this was to proceed, it would make sense to have it done before, if there was an approval for the Hawley. There's lots of ifs here, I get that. Before the Hawley pathway was approved or had works commenced, because you'd end up digging up part of that pathway, wouldn't you, too?
Yeah, potentially, yes. Yeah. So certainly the overland flow paths, actually there's a sag at the bottom of the Sankey Street at the moment. So either the sag in Sankey Street would have to be lifted, so there's a constant grade all the way out over Hawley Esplanade as it currently is, or the other option is to lower Hawley Esplanade and the proposed pathway kind of area so that sag wasn't the lowest point anymore. The lowest point is still out towards the fortune, or it could be a combination of both, lifting one a little bit and dropping the other a little bit. But we should be able to determine what those levels are prior to the path going in. So it might be even before the Sankey Street works happen, the path does a deliberate drop 300 millimetres, 400 millimetres, whatever the number is, in that line of Sankey Street in preparation for the overland flow path.
Okay. A few notes here, so I'm just referring to those if that's all right. So a concern that was raised was what happens when the water actually gets to Hawley, and there was the report spoke of self-healing, and we have seen that out there. Absolutely, the beach can be washed away, and then a fortnight later it all comes back again. I understand that. But when the stormwater comes through, it's comes through pretty heavily, and the beach gets, and that whole area gets eroded a little bit, and it's quite destructive. So how would you propose that those waters be slowed down to minimise that?
I guess from my perspective, in terms of erosion, my main concern would be erosion of the embankment or the rise where it comes up towards road level.
Yeah.
The actual loss of sand and then the regeneration of the sand 2 tides later or stuff, I'm not too concerned about that personally. But to reduce that rate of runoff, the only way to reduce it to a slower rate is detention storage, and would require a massive structure to feed it out in a pipe that size as opposed to a pipe that size. And whether that's really justified when the tide's going to repair, self-replenish the sand on the beach within a day or two, couple of high tides, and that's basically restores itself.
Would that pipe work be better off to be extended out further? Would that improve? What
probably has been done before might have been a smaller diameter. I'd say if it comes out through all the esplanade in a pipe like this, there might be a smaller pipe that takes that low flow, that typical rainfall out beyond the beach. But then if there is like a more significant storm event, that would then spill out. There'd be a relief point there between the big pipe and the small pipe, and that would go out over the beach and then cause a scouring. But doing that work has probably more been reserved for sewage outfalls, for sewage pump stations, not pump stations, but wastewater treatment plants and things like that, to actually get that discharge point away from that sort of public area, whereas stormwater works aren't so critical in terms of environmental issues. But yeah, there is a lot of rock there, and then you'd have to then somehow either avoid the rock and anchor it in the sand, which probably means big piles and sitting it up on some sort of a structure to actually get that constant fall out into the bay. So you might end up with an exposed pipeline which is there all the time, 24/7, as opposed to some scouring on the beach that would self-heal.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm still pondering, but yeah, you go.
I just have a question, because we have those issues. Where is that actually coming from? It's not just the tide. We have got stormwater.
We have got issues since the last three or 4 years. Where is all that water coming from?
So certainly people are building bigger houses, concreting more areas. So the actual amount of runoff that we're getting from not only these new developments, but also the park developments where there's infill and units being built, garages being built, we're getting a lot more into our system that didn't use to.
We're talking about the Chromie development up on the hill, which is 270 blocks, which is coming down there.
That's just generally everywhere. That's the case.
But that's when it all started. Like, we have a lot more issues since we have got 270 lots up on the hill, and that's what people are talking about out in that whole area, that since all those houses have been built on the hill, we do have all these issues with Century Street and all the streets being flooded, and because the storm is coming on the hill.
Yeah, so I guess just some background there. When that subdivision went in, like, it was met all those engineering standards at the time. It was a couple of years later, the engineering standards changed. So, yeah, there's no doubt the houses on the hill have exacerbated, but Cromies at the time did do the right thing and developed according to the standards. But they did change quite significantly. And I guess as far as the detention basin, there was evidence that heavy rain a couple of years ago, the detention basin actually filled up. It actually, I think, overfilled, but then by the morning it was empty again. So, John, do you want to comment about, Jonathan, about the engineering standards, that it did meet those at the time in 2016?
Yeah, so there's the standards changed in 2016. And that allowed for climate change, which hadn't really been allowed for in the 1985 version. So it actually has been quite a number of years between those reviews occurring with the Australian rainfall and runoff. So so effectively it is about an extra 16.5%, I think, allowance for this additional climate change runoff that was on top of current day. So current days increased significantly over since 1985 when that previous document was produced. So yeah, the current day is higher, but they're also saying in the works that you do now, you need to allow for these projects that have got an 80-year design life or whatever, design life of those pipes, you've got to allow for an extra 16.3% over that time to ensure that you're going to have capacity at the end of its life. There is some new information coming to light that actually the 16.5% is still very conservative, and that ultimately the next iteration comes of the design guide comes quite a bit sooner than what the 2016 version, and it might be a 25% or a 30% allowance that we've got to now do. So we're already getting those for rainfall talking about will increase. So not just looking at what is 2085, but also implementing changes over that period as well.
So have allowances. Sorry, you go off. Have allowances.
Additional allowances being made then for those perceived or potential increases in volume?
For this one, we're going under the current guide, which is the 16.5% or thereabouts. I guess what it does is would mean that if we were to build it for this 100-year or 1% chance, I keep referring to this 100-year level because that's easier for other people to understand, but it really is a 1% chance of happening in any 1 year. So you could have 4 years with that same rainfall event, which would have in the past been referred to as 1 in 100. Yeah. People keep saying, how come you keep having these 1 in 100 years? So it is a 1% chance in occurring in any 1 year. What this would mean is if those predictions were conservative on the future rainfall prediction, what we might have in 100 years in 2085 might be not quite what we expected to have in terms of a level of protection. It might only be a 1 in 70 year level of protection rather than the 1 in 100 year, which is what we're aiming for. What we're aiming for now, but when that time comes, if the sizing isn't there, it might not provide what we predicted now would be that level of protection.
But we're actually still building on that hill, so that's not going to get any better.
Yeah, so
it's not just the rainfall, it's actually, there's still a lot of blocks up there and a lot of houses will build up there. So it's only going to get worse, not just because of the rainwater and all that, it's because there's a lot of houses still to build. So how do we actually prevent from this is going to get worse?
So the catchment area is basically predicted within this to develop within that area to that similar level of development that's already there through the what planning expanding allows and all the rest of it. So it's not just now like the current level of development plus 16.3%. It is that catchment developed plus the 16.3%. So we should have an oversized system for a number of years until that catchment develops to that level.
Development actually be part of paying for that rather than the ratepayers?
Well, they did what was required of them, which would have been the overall catchment developed. So when they got their development approved, they met the standards at that time. I don't know whether you want to comment on that, Johnson, but how you go back, the standards changed. I mean, things, that they met what they had to do at the time. They didn't change the standards. We didn't change the standards. There was new standards came in.
But now we're making the ratepayers pay for what's now not working.
That's the same for every outfall that we've got. We've got that same scenario, but they're potentially all going to be needing to be upsized before their design life's finished because of these changes. But we're not able to go back to address it.
It's no different than going into Benny Street. Like sooner or later, we'll have to curb and gutter Benny Street. At some stage in the past, the standards were that, open drains on the side of the road was suitable. So the developers put it in, they met the standards. Now we, as a community, believe you need curb and channel. The rest of the ratepayers will go back and refit it. So there's no different. I mean, over the years, the standards have changed dramatically in lots of areas.
John, is this the only place out there we're having problems? Because it seems to be that we're always coming back to Sankey Street.
Taruna Street's the other one that Mr. McCall.
We did some work in Taruna Street last year, and that's, we haven't had major rain events, but we had a really heavy downpour the last few months. We didn't get the same damage with some reasonably minor works that we did there. We need to go back and visit that. And then the other catchment where we're doing the big study, we're still waiting for stage 2 to come out.
And they're the only two streets that big cruddy development backs onto.
Yeah.
So that's here.
Corona Street and Sankey.
Whereas Hugh Street, the next one over, is in that drier part. So it just doesn't go on.
So there's a pipe going down Sankey Street now, isn't there?
Right.
And you're saying we need a bigger pipe?
Probably.
And curb and channel.
And well, that seems to be the big thing. People don't like curb and channel.
Have it.
Well, let's give an instance. Would curb and channeling fix that stormwater problem?
Well, they're part of the solution. Part of what the but for the more regular rainfall events, much rather get under the ground in a pipe network than running.
So we do both then.
It's a combination.
Right.
Do both. Okay, that answers mine. That satisfies me.
And I guess the landscape has changed out there too. You know, 20 years ago, it was still shacks on fairly big blocks. Now there's a lot more concrete areas, a lot more surface area that's trying to go into the connection points. People aren't just happy to go there from a period. If it's raining outside, you play cards inside. The whole
things change.
Change in what people expect.
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
You've got a recommendation.
Yeah, I've got a recommendation. I'm just going to put the vote. Recommendations there. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? You're going against it? We have one against it. What's the next one on you? Is it 15?
Yep, 15.
Operations Department?
16.
16.1. The recommendation that the information be discussed at the report received. And someone like to move?
Happy to move.
Councillor Wicks. Someone like to second it? Councillor Fiddler. We're open for discussion.
No comments.
No comments. Anybody else got any comments? No? No, put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Very unanimous. Delegates' reports are there for you to read. If someone would like to move that. Councillor Wicks. Someone second it? Councillor Martin? Anybody, any questions on those?
Happy.
Okay. Put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
This is carried. What's the next one? There's the 16.3 Council's decision status report for February 24. Recommendation this 2024 status report to open council meetings. Decisions be received. Someone like to move?
Moved.
Fiddler. Councillor Fiddler. Someone second it? Councillor Martin. No discussion?
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried unanimously. Right. Down to, which one? We're on to 17. 17.1, Committees of Council. Reports for all caravan committee meeting held on the 21st of February. Would someone like to move that thing?
I can move that. You there? I was there.
Councillor Baldock. Do we get seconded?
Yeah.
Councillor Fiddler. Any discussion?
I guess the main one was the dogs. That was discussed previously at a workshop. In the end, the original recommendation was we have a couple of areas where you could take your dogs and one area where you couldn't. Caretakers attended the meeting. They believe that would be very difficult to manage.
In winter time.
Yeah. And so the idea was that we'd develop some guidelines. Councillor Mesker referred us on to where she'd stayed. So we've got a copy of those. So we'll work out some guidelines. And the caretaker did mention that over the summer period, there were 2 occasions where dogs had inappropriate behaviour. and they were managed by, in one case, the dog left the site. I think the other one, they managed it better, so.
But they also said that there was a lot less, they've seen a lot
Yeah.
less violence in the park because of the dogs.
They thought it was less
Less
thefts,
stoppage and less
less things
violence.
being taken from campsites by the dogs being there.
Yeah.
Didn't-
So anyway, so that's the recommendation which has been moved and seconded.
Yep.
That'd be a good thing.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. The 17.2, Latrobe Elderly Persons Unit Committee meeting,
So moved, Steve.
moved by councillor Sims, seconded
There's a report.
councillor Fiddler.
Again,
You wish to talk to it?
there's a report there that shall forward.
Elderly Persons Unit said the owner of that.
Yes, so we'll consider them as part of the budget process.
Yeah.
That's a recommendation.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The next one is the Latrobe Council Audit Panel Committee meeting. Someone like to move?
Need someone to move in second, just to receive them.
Yeah, just to receive. Councillor Fiddler and councillor Martin.
To receive.
Anybody wish to speak to it?
The minutes are there.
Minutes are there, yep. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried.
So just note there, the chairperson's indicated, I think you attend one more meeting, but looking to the new financial year, because of the, how busy he is, it did get highlighted, the number of accountants, very difficult to attract. He's lost some in his business, and so he's going to have to put more time in his business and give up the chair of some audit panels. So we'll maybe, I think after the next meeting, it may be an appropriate time then to just, I think he's been on it there for 8 years, done a good job.
So what's the process then, Jeremy?
I'll probably take it through the municipal alliance. We're due for the municipal alliance committee meeting through both councils and start the process through there. They'll make a recommendation to both councils. So that's what I'm thinking at this stage. We'll run the process through the municipal alliance. Just be comfortable that they're still okay to have a joint meeting. There has been some queries with the local government division. We believe we meet the current legislation, given that the joint meeting we have between the two councils basically doesn't make decisions. The decisions are made through the individual audit panels. But as part of local government reform and the push for more shared services across the state, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't look at the issues and given the shortages of expertise in this area. But one of the recommendations from the board could be that you have more internal auditors. Smaller councils would find it very difficult to have a full-time internal auditor, but it may be where 3 or 4 councils would have a full-time internal auditor.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Unanimous. Okay. Number 18. Sorry? You, 19. Ready? Okay. We need a closed meeting. Recommendation. We need a closed meeting.
Second.
Second, councillor Martin. Okay. Fix it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. The agenda for the closed meeting. Oh, sorry. Yeah.